said we'd do it, and we're back. We're back.
It's great to be back, Tom. How's everybody keeping? Did you miss us?
Damn right they did. Well, look, I tell you something, Jerry. I've missed. I won't lie. I've missed it, and I'm very, very excited for this new season.
I'm very excited for this new season of the Tom and Gerry Show. It's as much a continuation as it is a new step for the Tom and Gerry Show. It might be not long before we step back in our lane, Tom, but we'll see how we get on for now.
I know. How have you been keeping anyway? How's your week been? Is it all right?
I've been keeping grand. Fucking one day starts, the other day stops. You know what I mean, Tom?
I know.
I will put it to you like this. We're not a maudlin podcast, Tom, but I have been delighted to have something like this to work on over the past couple of weeks.
I get you. And even this week gone, it was fucking everything was, you know, those emotional roller coaster of a week. Good fucking great. For the love of Jesus.
Another fucking thing.
And I've been looking forward to this today. When I looked at the phone, I went, yes, fucking yes, we're recording this episode tonight. We're starting season 6. I was very, very excited.
Season 6 of the Tom and Gerry Show. And as we've said before, as we said in the introductory episode, Tom, this is a sort of a change of tack for the Tom and Gerry Show. Like I say, everybody that's listened to us over the last couple of years, you might notice every now and then in episodes, me and Tom would chat about things that would take our interest, and rather than derail the episode that we were on, we would just kind of hang back, and when all was said and done and the recording was stopped, we would sit and chat for about an hour on certain topics. And then we decided, hey, you know what? That's the podcast. That's season 6. Let's take these topics that we have interest in and do an episode on each of them. Because, Tom, we're fucking chatting for an hour at the end of every episode anyway. We may as well record the damn thing and get it out there, right?
Burning content we were. Burning
content.
And then it snowballed, and before we knew it, McBride was like, let's do some homework on the thing. I was like, oh, Jesus, homework.
Holy shit, I haven't done homework in 20 fucking years.
And even when I was doing homework, I didn't fucking do homework back then. Yeah.
So that brings us to the subject of today's episode, Tom. We said we'd kick it off with a man that both of us have a lot of admiration for, a man known as Fred Dibnah.
Fred Dibnah. The Venn diagram of blokes running into each other that know about Fred Dibnah. If you haven't heard of him, hugely popular. Just go looking on YouTube. Hugely popular man, but to meet another comedian, I mean, we're quite similar in a lot of ways, but then to cross over and find that we both love Fred Dibnah, I mean, it was like this eureka moment. You're like, no way,
yeah,
Jesus, way.
It was quite a come to Jesus moment when we were like, God, like, you know, because we mentioned him in passing in one other episode. I accidentally called him Fred Dibnah, and I know what I did there, Tom. I know exactly what I did there. I got him mixed up with Fred Dinenage, who was another popular 80s and 90s TV personality. Fred Dinenage used to do How To,
yes,
Carol Vorderman and Gaz Top. And I put the two of them together in my brain and made him Fred Dibnah, which is a lot fancier than Fred Dibnah, but Fred was fancy enough when he wanted to be too.
He wouldn't have accepted that abbreviation of his name. I don't think so. But
I don't think so.
I think the first time I ran across him, I asked the old man today, I said, did we watch him here for the first year? He fucking did. He was on one evening after the Antiques Roadshow.
Yes.
And none of us had heard of him. And I remember myself, the parents happened to be in the room, and all three of us were absolutely enthralled with this man. His charm, the old school shit. It was like, this guy's doing shit that country people wouldn't even fucking dare to do. It's so crazy, like, you know?
Well, as we'll get into in the episode, Tom, once you see Fred Dibnah doing his thing on TV, it's hard to look away from it.
Unbelievable. You can't. It's
very hard to look away from it.
The hook that Fred has, and anything to do with him, it's so raw and honest. It was just, oh my good Christ, amazing stuff.
Amazing. I'm very like you. I'm very like you in your story as well. Like, I remember watching him. He was an acceptable face to watch on the TV. Nobody wouldn't like him in the house. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like the kids wanted to watch Top of the Pops and the parents wanted to watch the news. Oil and water can't meet.
Yeah.
But there were certain things that tickled everyone's fancy, and they all seemed to be northern England. It was Fred Dibnah and Last of the Summer Wine. I don't know what that curious Venn diagram was. We loved it because it was exciting or funny, and probably reminded Dad of working in England for the cup of coffee that he was over there. But yeah, no, he was an enthralling man to get to know, and hopefully this podcast will bring his legend to a few more people, or indeed, if you are a fan of Fred Dibnah, we hope we did him justice.
I know. I'm frightened that we'll have missed a couple of bits, but at the same time, I'm delighted if we have missed a couple of bits, because if you are a Fred, if you're relative, if you knew a Fred Dibnah, if you're from Bolton or the greater, Northern England area, fucking get in touch. Let us know. Let us know if we missed it. And the great man himself.
Even though this is set to run over a couple of episodes, Tom, this is far from a deep dive. This is all information that was readily available to us, although I don't know about you, Tom. I watched an easy 26 hours of Fred Dibnah content in the run up to this. But even that just sort of scratches the surface. What we want to say, we always said that the Tom and Gerry Show wasn't a learning podcast. Yeah, you know what? This might be a little bit learning, but there's plenty of learning to do after this. So if this interests you, look up a couple of Fred videos on YouTube, and you'll get what we're talking about. But this really here is an introduction to the legend of Fred Dibnah.
Brilliant stuff. So let's pull up our socks, roll up our trousers, roll up our sleeves, whatever we got to do, Ger. Let's jump into it. Let's jump into Fred Dibnah.
Well, that's where we're jumping, Tom. We're jumping in time. We're jumping back to Bolton in the 1930s. Now, to modernize it would appear as an otherworldly landscape, with steam-powered factories running on coal-fired boilers, feeding the atmosphere with a thick black smoke through hundreds, if not thousands, of towering brick chimneys stretching into the sky. And on April the 29th, 1938, local bleach factory employees Frank and Betsy Dibnah were blessed with a son who they named Frederick, a boy who would grow up with a passion for steam, coal, iron and fire, a passion that would make him one of Britain's best known and most loved television personalities of all time.
I know, and what a lead-in. What a lead-in. There you go. Frank and Betsy Dibnah. I mean, two salt of the earth names, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Frank and Betsy Dibnah weren't going to call their son Horatio. I'm sorry.
No, Theobald fucking Dibnah was never going to be their son. Like, sure he wasn't. Fred.
What I love about this, Tom, is we can't possibly know what this place looked like or smelled like. Industrial England back in the 1930s. As I've said there now, we are talking everything is running on coal. Everything is running on steam. Everything is pounding a chimney up. I mean, I personally, Tom, went to college in Dundalk in the late 90s. So I know what the Harp factory smells like when it starts brewing hops.
Yeah.
And that's one factory brewing hops. I'm not talking about hundreds of factories pounding out black smoke into the air, and we can only imagine what the place, number one, looked like. The haze of the sun coming through, the smoke in the sky, the smell of coal, the smell of fire, the smell of industry. I mean, what would your washing smell like, Tom?
It would smell like everybody else's washing, Jared. That's the thing I thought about. I was like, right, so this is the scenario. I mean, same like that. I worked in Cork. I worked near where they make Ferrero Rocher, and it sounds lovely. And it is lovely the first couple of times up in that building site when you smell, there's a smell of sweet chocolate coming through the air. Day 3, you're fair fucking sick of the smell of chocolate, I can tell you that much. But day 5, you can't smell no chocolate no more. That's just the way it is.
We have a new dog in the house, Tom, and for the first couple of days, it's like, oh, there's a smell of the dog. And now we don't smell the dog at all. And there's a bit of us that says, well, the dog doesn't smell anymore. But the truth of it is close to the fact of we literally can't smell it.
Yeah, your nose blind.
It's the ticking of a clock to us, Tom.
Yeah, your nose blind. That's all that is. And it's the same thing with Bolton. I've been to Bolton, and you can see still the industrial kind of remnants of a few places where you were like, oh, this is a brick-built city. You know, it's a hard city where hard people, hard grafters, because you'd no choice. Yeah. It wasn't like you were.
This was it.
Towns like Bolton sprung up around, Sunderland and these places. They sprung up around the north of England where they weren't built based on privilege. When you hear a place, like London and a lot of other places were built based on privilege. They weren't. They were purely built for the privileged, if you know what I mean, like the great industrialists and whatnot. They didn't put these factories in Chelsea. You know what I mean? They put them where they could find big, strong blokes, which is the north of England tends to have a lot of big men, big, strong, industrial-driven blokes. That tends to be what you get up around the north of England. I don't know, is it a Viking kind of streak or something that's happening there? But that was the place to put it. Hence, also, you're going to get a lot of mining coming up out of Wales and North England as well. Because, as you said, everything was driven by coal, not the electricity we have nowadays. I mean,
No, this wasn't chasing all your industry out into an industrial estate on the outskirts of a city, out of sight, out of mind, where computers could go through it. This was in the thick of it, in industrial factories mixed with residential areas throughout.
well, that's it, because all your staff literally worked and lived on the same doorstep. My wife's parents had a factory, and it basically ruined them. It was a clothing factory. It was where Vicker Street is now.
Right.
It ruined them to move out to an IDA park because they couldn't get, when there were people flying people over, or if they were, they had workers that were near, everything just went to pot because not everybody had a car. When the industry moved out of cities and became gentrified and all the rest of it, absolutely ruined the fucking things, Jar. Ruined it.
Well, as you mentioned there, Tom, big, strong, strapping men up in the north of England. But before our Fred was a big, strong, strapping man, he was a little, small, fairly strapping young fella. Even from an early age, Fred was fascinated by the red brick chimney jungle that he lived in, and showed his first signs of engineering lifestyle that he would become so fascinated with later in life by indulging in a favourite pastime of boys his age in the area, which was, of course, Tom, dredging shit out of the Manchester, Bolton and Bury Canal and using it to build things.
Fucking right. As I tell you one thing, any country lad worth his salt has pulled the yoke out of a ditch and thought, hey, this yoke's got fucking wheels. Something with wheels. Something with wheels. We can make that go down a hill.
It was one of an interview I watched with Fred where he described that what they would look out for in the tips, skips and canals of the area were old prams, because the old prams had the big hard plastic wheels on them. And as he said it, Tom, I was like, I fucking know those. I know those exactly. And I know what you did with those, Fred Dibnah, because my dad did it for me as well. You would take the axle and the wheels off the pram, you would get a crucifix of wood, you would stick it on it, and now you had a bogey for going down a hill.
Yeah. And it string as a steering column as well. Like, I know we did the exact same thing. I shouldn't have really done it. We didn't actually, one particular one, it was a family heirloom. It was a silver cross, old school silver cross.
The old silver cross, yes.
Yeah.
I want to tell you what that'd run you these days, Tom.
I know what it'd run us, because we ended up buying a new version. This fucking one would have worked absolutely fine with its leaves. And it was classic. It had the chrome finish with the fucking leaf springs and everything on it, the whole lot. So if the brother thought, we'll get now a couple of ice scripts and we'll take the fucking all this chassis off and we'll get it down to the bare bones. Go way faster. Way faster.
Yeah.
If I had a canal to be dredging, Jer, if only I dreamed of a canal.
Funny as you mentioned for the canals, Tom, because Fred's ingenuity didn't just stretch to taking wheels off a pram and putting them on a buggy and going down a hill. As we've mentioned, Tom, both you and I could and did do this. Fred built his own canoe from pram wheels, and he did this. I'll tell you, nothing this man couldn't build with a fucking pram wheel. This is some A-team shit here. You look the A-team up in a riverside bank with a bunch of prams. They're going to build you something that looks an awful lot like this. Fred would get the pram wheels, cut them in half to create two semicircles, take all the spokes out of them and line them out and use that as the rib cage for a canvas canoe.
Fucking hell, that's some Native American level.
You're
not supposed to know that.
No.
You're not supposed to know that. In one generation, Jared, that's supposed to be handed down over 10,000 fucking generations, like the Native Americans.
Well, this was the intelligence of Fred, that he would look at something and could see what to do.
Jesus.
Because he was a bright young fella, or Fred was said to have never missed a day at school. And, you might say to yourself, Tom, that could be maybe he likes school, but maybe it had something to do with the fact that his route to and from St. Michael's Primary was lined with huge factories humming with steam-powered machinery, each complete with a massive chimney upon which Fred would sometimes spot steeplejacks. But despite all this daydream material for the youngster, Fred excelled at school to the point that he attained an art school scholarship, which he attended for a while, basing most of his work around, Tom, you guessed it, fucking steam-powered machinery.
Of course he did.
What else was he going to draw?
You know what? His parents, I reckon I would have loved to have met his parents, because they must have filled his head with, because all the other kids were seeing chimneys everywhere. His parents only worked in a fucking old bleach factory. It wasn't like his parents were superheroes, and, they must have filled his head with amazing notions as to what all this, to get excited just by passing things that you see every day. You know yourself, you could be living in fucking nirvana.
There's 100 kids wouldn't have looked up.
Nah, but every day he thought these yolks were they were the bee's knees, and there was some level of engineering went into them. But at the same time, like a kid getting excited enough to go to school just to fucking watch him.
I mean, what I want to talk about now as well, Tom, is I don't know about you, but I can't picture Fred Dibnah as a child.
I was just thinking
can't do it.
I was just thinking it.
And for anybody, I mean, we've certainly, if we're any sort of podcasters at all, we've put out some images of Fred on our social, so you get the idea of what he looks like. But if you've never clapped eyes on the man at all, he is, and I did my best, Tom, in research, but I could not find an actual height for the man. But he looks like he's 5'8", 5'9". He's a smaller gentleman. He's quite stocky. He's quite small. He looks like he's impossible to push over.
No way, man. No way would you get. He'd be like a fucking tent peg. You would not get him over. Not a hope.
And he's got his boiler suit on. He's got his flat cap. And even now, when I'm picturing young Fred Dibnah in an art school, he's got this little fucking Bash Street Kids Beano look to him. Because he looked like a Beano character to his dying day.
With the glasses and the little black hands on him. And he'd be always rubbing his cheek, rubbing round mouth. And of course, he's standing there and he's asking the teacher, like, where and, where should I draw the bloody thing? And I didn't have any pencils or paintbrushes or out. I mean, turns out they wanted to give me scholarship because I wasn't half bad. Because he never bigged himself up. He never bigged himself up. Sure, he didn't. Even though he's a fucking legend, like. He just gave it the facts, like. But he gets himself a scholarship, like from.
He gets himself a scholarship
from a couple of bleach factory workers. Produced a guy who in Bolton. What the fuck would they know about art in Bolton back in the day? No.
Well, here we go. I mean, and like what if he'd stuck at it, Tom, and just stuck at the Can you see Fred doing interpretive dance in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with a bucket in front of him for coins?
Okay, so I know it may seem a bit odd, but I brought this cat. Now, I want you to focus on cat. Think about it. Can we envisage being a cat? I'm going to be a cat for the next 2.5 hours. Join me as he sits there.
Sing a song. Fuck off! Sing a song.
Fucking meow, you bastards! Imagine him though as like being an art critic, an actual art critic, like as an artist. Oh, Van Gogh. Do we need to talk about the itch with the ear? Some of the great masters. I like the way though, and he'd be actually good at it. But you could listen. I reckon Fred could make art. You listen to wankers talk about art and stuff like that. And
I've listened to enough people go on about art and wine and shit to appreciate Fred Dibnah's take on it.
Can you imagine it if he was looking at some of the great masters? Rembrandt. Now, let's have a look. I see the way the light strikes the sun. But Fred, the problem with Fred is Fred would fucking hate everything if it doesn't have like an industrial chimney built into it. I like what you done there. I like what Michelangelo did there, but Last Supper. Could add a chimney. Yeah.
Needs more wheels. Well, after wrapping up school at 16, Fred became an apprentice joiner, but that was following a brief stint as an undertaker. Tom, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop myself there. But did you have 2 jobs in a college course on your CV when you were fucking 16 years of age?
Sweet. This is the thing, people. 16. Wind that back and think what we were doing. I had a bit of a job, but it was very remedial work, power washing pig houses. Not a lot of responsibility. I had achieved
and certainly
nothing.
Not a career.
Had you achieved anything by 16, Jar?
No, Tom.
You and your white privilege
I hadn't achieved my full height.
Yeah. I hadn't achieved my full beard. I cannot picture him in school. A stubby little young fella. I can't picture him. Was he smoking fags from fucking...
Absolutely. And then he goes on to be an undertaker's assistant, more on undertakers later. And then he goes on to be an apprentice joiner. I mean, he could turn his hand to any of this. But Tom, I really feel that these were jobs... I hate to speculate, but I feel that these were jobs that were got for him. This is the kind of job your dad would come home and say...
Yeah.
Fred's dad coming home and like, all right, son, you're starting in the undertakers in the morning, all right?
Did you ever get a job like that pushed upon you?
Oh yeah, Yeah, and stuck at it for 12 or 14 years. Very much
right.
like
The hardware business, yeah. Yeah, you're going here tomorrow. Am I? Oh, great.
Yeah, go here, do this. I know that, and like it always worked. The first job I got was a job like that. And my dad came home and goes, do you want to start on Saturday morning? I was like, yeah, gladly, because I was fucking bored out of my tree. And above all else, Tom, as you know, above all else, as you should know with me, Tom, a hungry little bastard, and I wanted money, and this seemed like as good a way as any to get it.
Yeah. Now, if your outlet had come in the door and said, got your job, well, lovely. Where am I working? Fucking O'Mahony's Undertakers up the road. All right. What am I doing? Oh, you'll just be clipping toenails and brushing hair. you'll be washing out the hearse. Whatever it takes.
I think Fred's task was a lot more in the coffin building things, but I would imagine he would have turned his hand to clipping the nails with some self-engineered clippers that gets the job done.
I imagine he would actually, yeah. Oh.
But regardless of that, during his job as a joiner, Fred got his first crack at doing something that he'd wanted to do since his days of walking to school and witnessing those steeplejacks working in the sky. Fred got his chance to work up a ladder.
Now,
he was asked to point the gable wall of a neighbour's house. Now, Tom, take us through pointing there. For the uninitiated, take us through pointing.
Now, given that this is in the north of England, it's either going to be brick or stone. Now,
yes.
So pointing, you have to point everything, but typically blockwork will be pointed and plastered over, so you never have to worry about it again, albeit the plasterwork may go to trip. But if you're pointing, which is the mortar between the bricks or stone, it can crack. Water can get into it if it wasn't done right day one, freezing, then heat, cracks it, pops it out again. You gotta touch it up, because especially back in the day, they wouldn't have the best of gear when they're actually, pointing. So pointing and repointing would go on. So basically, going up a ladder with just a little bucket of mortar and a tiny little curved trowel, filling back in the joints in between the bricks. Meticulous stuff, not absolutely fucking brain-worthy stuff, but at the same time, you want to be tasty enough to do a decent job of it as a young fella.
Well, chisel that into stone right now, because that is becoming all the hallmarks of Fred Dibnah's career. Working up a height at painstaking work, but work that nobody else would really want to do, but he absolutely loved. So with him being asked to point the gable wall of a neighbour's house, Fred learned some skills such as lashing together ladders, working at a height, and although this particular job only took him a couple of dozen feet off the ground, Tom, Fred's lifelong altitude addiction had begun. Over the next few years, Fred took any opportunity to be at sky level, including building an ornate, completely unnecessary chimney stack extension onto the fireplace of his mother's house. And that chimney to this day, Tom, has a preservation order on it. 2, taking a 10-shilling bet from his friends to climb the 282-foot Barrow Bridge chimney at the age of just 17. And both of these incidents gained him local notoriety and perhaps even a taste for life in the headlines, Tom.
Jerry, it still gets brought up every so often around here that I jumped off of Kappa Bridge. I'm from a small parish of Bancha, which a small townsland called Kappa, and there's a bridge here that does not require any climbing. Literally, there's a road. You just stand on the bridge and jump. It's maybe, at best, a 50-foot drop into really deep water. There's a little bit of a whirlpool that gets a big name, like there's a dragon living down there. It really wasn't a major issue. I had a fucking insert out of a truck tire around my waist. It absolutely worked out fine. 50 feet tops, Ger. No chance of me dying. Okay. Tiny chance of me dying.
I mean, every chance of you dying, Tom.
Okay. But at no point would that was me maxing out. I was absolutely pushing out the coffers of my fucking bravery at 50 feet into a river. I might be even wrong. It might be only fucking 30 feet for all I know. I haven't looked in there since that time I jumped off the thing. But at no way. I did get a $5 off the boys to do it. But 282. Let's put that in context. A telegraph pole, a timber telegraph pole on average is 30 feet, Jer. 30 fucking feet. 30 feet. Your average semi-D, maybe 22 to 25 feet wide. So a row of houses, maybe 11 semi-Ds in a row.
Yeah.
Jammed up against each other. Crank that up in the air. Now,
or
That's
10 telegraph poles straight up in the air. He went up there to hang a Union Jack flag on a bet. I mean, like, he could have just as easy hung a sign that said Fred did this, but
that wouldn't have been Fred, though. That wouldn't have been Fred.
This is the madness of Fred. This is like, how high can I go? And I really do believe, when I wrote that down in altitude addiction, that it wasn't enough for him to be pointing the gable walls of houses 20 feet off the air, 20 feet in the air. And it wasn't enough for him to go up. And we'll put a link to it. We'll put a picture up of it on the social medias of the chimney that he built at his mother's house. That, I stress, Tom, she did not fucking ask for, or indeed want, or indeed like.
I mean, there's so many things to unpack there. Your young fella actually wants to do a bit of work around the place, for one. Jesus Christ, let him at it. And number two, you didn't ask for it in any shape, maker, and now you're getting an ornate chimney. Like, it's incredible, Tom. If you see the picture, it's like a row of houses, like at the start of Coronation Street.
Yes, and then one of them just has this
phenomenal chimney on top of it.
Tower of a chimney on it. And the thing that gets me here with this, and as any of our listeners might be picking up, oh, you've skipped over the bit where he learned how to do this. No, he didn't.
Nope.
No, we didn't. He did not learn how to do it. Nobody showed him how to do it. Fred took on with this. He took on with learning how to work with ladders, lashing them to the walls as safely as, safe enough for Fred to get up, to build chimneys. I mean, Tom, there's nothing in this that he learned in his previous occupations in art school, the undertakers, or in a fucking joinery.
Yeah. This is the thing, that he just seemed to pick it up. I wonder in the area, when you grow up in an area like, I mean, you got to learn everything, but at the same time, like, this tractor driving would be big around here, that kind of way. And it would be a natural progression for a lad to jump on a tractor and give her a lash. Like, but normally you'd start in a small tractor in a big field doing nothing to give it a go first. You don't, like, the equivalent of that would be him on the ground jar with a couple of bricks building a barbecue, with one of those brickies mates or whatever they call them, giving it a go. You don't just go straight to, let's get up roof. Mother, where's me cap? Mother, have you seen me ladders? Oh, there. That's all right. I'll go up drain pipe. It's fine, Mother. Thank you. What's our friend doing again? He's up that blood. Imagine Mrs. Dibnah talking over the back fence with the fucking hanging out the washing. She's going, what's your David doing? Oh, all sorts, always stuck in his room playing video. Well, it wouldn't be video games back then, but he stuck in room playing tiddlywinks or whatever. He's up to no good. What about your Fred? Oh, well, have a look. He's on fucking roof right now, building fucking chimney. You don't have a chimney. Oh, we have a chimney. He's just making another fucking chimney on top of a chimney. You all right, Fred? All right, Mom. You're like fucking madness. But I love that his parents let him off. Let him off to fuck. At least he's up to
it doesn't sound to me like they had much say in the matter. Like, this was Fred. He was all about being on a height, working up there, and being one of these steeplejacks that he loved to watch work all his life. Which this brought us up to 1960, Tom, where Fred is now 22 and steeplejack crazy. But unfortunately for Fred, but fortunately for Her Majesty's government, he was drafted into the army as part of the then mandatory national service. Fred was stationed in Germany as a caterer, and he was desperately bored, which means he wanted to do what, Tom? Get up a fucking ladder. He managed to swing a job repairing the roof of a local farmhouse, which I didn't know that. At any rate, he managed to repair the roof of a local farmhouse, as well as a number of non-catering based jobs and activities that helped him pass the time until 1962, when he returned to Bolton with just one thing on his mind: becoming a steeplejack.
Do you know, like, the idea of I kind of like the idea of national service, because yourself, you're an absolute, like, I don't think Fred needed national service. Anybody didn't need national service. That man knew where he was going. But all 99% of the population are complete fucking flutes at 20 years of age. You don't know what you're at. I think I gotta tell you, Tom.
One of my regrets in this life was that I went straight from school into college. And although That's just how it was. And if I'd have taken a year off, as they say these days, I probably would have just fluted around the place and played the fucking Amstrad or whatever. I reckon, like,
the Amstrad.
you know what I mean? Like,
we the Commodore,
Yeah, you know, like you'd never been away from taking a year out to do what? I just fucking do this and pull myself, like, you know. National service, Tom. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to be said. I mean, this wasn't wartime. Fred was stationed in fucking Germany doing dick all.
I love the crossover of Fred, like learning a bit of German. Learning a bit of German. Enough to be able to get a fucking gig, to get a job. You know,
got a fucking side hustle from the army.
Getting fucking mixers, or foxers as they call them, getting mixers out in Germany. Entschuldigung, Fraulein. I know I'm attempting to speak German, Jerry, while doing Fred's accent. This would be a fucking... I can only apologize to every person that I'm insulting during this moment. Entschuldigung. I should have written this out. I should have had to Google Translate for this. Entschuldigung, oh, Fraulein. Do you need roof fixing? That's probably the way it went. I get up. He probably just ladder. Eine fucking ladder. Up on the roof. You know, and just up he goes. And at some point, the German just had to go, this is happening, right? I'm not imagining this. This is definitely a British soldier fixing a roof. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like,
this
you know,
is trippy.
It's you just said the words there, Tom. Even though I've been reading about Fred doing national service, I've never heard him described as a soldier. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're part of the army. You're soldiering, you know, whether you're in the whatever corps you're in. It baffles me.
The catering corps too.
Why they put him in the catering corps?
What are you doing?
Tom?
That man walks in. That man walks in with thick hands, black with fucking, you know, black with work.
In a boiler suit.
In a boiler suit, smoking a fucking woodbine and a flat cap. You go, oh, do you know what he'll make? He'll make amazing vol au vents. That's what we'll do with him. We'll put him.
I gotta
on.
Tell you, that's your man. That's your man.
You don't put him in the engineering.
Right there.
You don't put him
in the engineering corps.
Jesus Christ!
You telling me Fred Dibnah couldn't dig a trench?
Like Dick Strawbridge, engineering corps. He made a career for the rest of his life. He's got one of the most incredible moustaches there is alive. He was Scrappy Challenge guy who went on to, you know, Escape to the Shadow. But he was engineering corps. Changed his life. Became brilliant at everything forever. Fred Dibnah.
I mean, like the other thing that baffles me as well, Tom, is, and hey, you know what? We always said the Tom and Gerry Show wasn't a learning podcast, but now it is. It's one where we all learn together. Yes. Can you take nixers in the army?
I don't think you can. Not when you're on duty and on tour. No fucking way. Now, there was definitely army lads around here were taking nixers all the time, but they were in the carpentry corps, you know what I mean? Or they were in, so they could, and they were working a 9 to 5. Those kind of, they weren't out in the lead.
Right, they weren't fucking skipping out on a trip to Eritrea to fucking point a chimney
to fucking unblock somebody's drains. No, they weren't. Like, it was, you know, you're not out in the lab going, what do you have this evening, lads? Because handy number now going. Handy. I don't know what the currency is in Lebanon, but I'm sure as shit it wouldn't hardly be worth your while to go fit a few fucking windows for a fella up the road, like, you know.
I just love the idea that, like, the gunnery sergeant or whatever it would be, the mess sergeant comes round and looks at the armory catering trays and lifts them up, and it's just like a cock crow or a weather vane cut out of it
with his snips.
Cut out of it with his snips. I was like, where's Dibnah? He's AWOL.
Dibnah!
But that was what Fred wanted to be. He wanted to be a steeplejack, and that's a trade that we've mentioned a couple of times already, Tom. But everybody's steeplejacking is their first steeplejacking, perhaps. So although a lot of our listeners might know what a steeplejack is, let's have a crack with those that don't, and we'll take a look at steeplejacks and steeplejackery. So to cut a long story short, Tom, and the best definition that I can get on the internet, a steeplejack is anyone who works up high structures such as church steeples, which is where the name comes from, brick chimneys, where they still exist, cooling towers, and in today's world, antenna masts. Basically, if it is high off the ground, you gotta call for a steeplejack. The antenna mast guys may be referred to as radio operators, what have you, but for all intents and purposes, if you're carrying tools up a ladder past where a house would normally end, you're a steeplejack. Now, today's steeplejacks are kitted out with enough climbing equipment to tackle K2, Tom.
K2.
But the steeplejacks of Fred Dibnah's era climbed hundreds of feet without any safety equipment save for a pair of hobnail boots and a refreshing, energy-giving woodbine hanging out of the side of their mouth.
Oh, that maybe a nice drop of cider,
I mean,
Jesus
I remember
Christ.
the steeplejacks came and fixed the roof of the church steeple in Carrickcross, which is quite high, Tom. The church I got married in, okay?
Yes.
And they were up there for like 6 or 8 weeks, and the whole town were watching them. And this was scaffolded from the ground up. There was a series of ladders going up. Everybody was clipped onto something. Everything was all done. And even at that, we were dizzy looking at them. But Fred Dibnah and the steeplejacks of his era, no.
They weren't wasting time with all that scaffolding carry on. They were like, why would I scaffold from the ground up when 9/10 of the way up the building is where the problem is? Let's just go to fucking 8/10 of the building and start there. What fucking else? One of the best steeplejacks apparently in the country is a Steeple Jane. She's from Limerick. Oh. And yeah, apparently, or by all accounts, this is just talking with the old man who knew her late husband, who was a steeplejack, who unfortunately the man passed away a couple of years back, and she had kind of picked up on an awful lot of his traits and decided there's still jobs coming in. Let's give it a go. Got her what we call apparently one of the bravest, one of the will not turn dangerous shit she will
coming to a future episode of the Tom and Gerry Show, I think there, Tom. But like we say, ladders and scaffolding up there, okay? So forget about how they do it today. Let's talk about how they do it then. So if you've seen any images of steeplejacks of the time, such as Fred Dibnah or anybody else, working at the top of a factory chimney, and you wonder, how'd they get up there? Tom, were they hoisted up by helicopter, or did they get lifted up on some sort of scissor lift fire engine ladder? You might want to fucking sit down for the next 5 minutes. Back in the day with Fred Dibnah, what you would do is you would start from the ground, testing the ground you were about to put this ladder on with your foot just to make sure it wasn't too damp. The steeplejack.
That's literally it.
Yeah, that seems all right.
That's literally
the steeplejack would secure. So your steeplejack would come along and he would have a ladder. What does the ladder look like, Tom? It's not a step ladder. It is a 12-rung ladder that looks like what you see strapped on the top of a window washer's van. But like a single ladder, not the extended ones like we have here. So you take the single ladder and nail that to the side of the chimney with what was known as a dog. And a dog was a metal hook, okay? It's about a foot long and one end of it has a hook, okay? What the steeplejack would do is he'd climb up the ladder to around about the last third of it. He would drill a hole in the wall. And I only say Fred, I've heard Fred describe this and I've watched him do it. And anytime he says drill a hole in the wall, he doesn't mean which are Hilti cordless, which weren't available in the 60s. He would talk about chisel a hole in the wall, chisel a little mouse hole in the wall and get it into it, and insert a roll plug. And again, Tom, these aren't the roll plugs like you and I would be used to, the little plastic ones
that you twist off on that little rack. Yeah.
No, this was like a little fucking chip of wood. Okay, this is like half of a kindling stick that you would light the fire with. So you're talking about chiseling out this little hole, putting in your plug, and then hammering in your dog into this. And that was what held your ladder to the wall.
Sweet suffering Jesus, when you consider it.
Yeah, it gets no better. Using rope skills that would make a sailor blush, you would then lash this ladder to the rope. Lash the ladder to the dog. So now what you have here is one ladder secured to a wall, around about 6 inches out. What you do now is you reach down, because you're only up your first ladder, Tom, and someone passes you a second ladder. What you do is you hook your leg over the top of the first ladder. Okay, so we're talking about that 6 inch gap from the wall.
You better have a 6 inch and less boot, basically, that can get down the inside of that ladder up again the chimney.
Yes, this is as technical as it is. You loop your foot around it. You bring your ladder up, and excuse me, you put the second ladder on top of the first ladder, but with like their top 2 to 3 rungs overcrossing each other.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. I'm with you.
And then you would tie the top of the first ladder to the bottom of the second ladder. What you then do is climb that second ladder, Tom. Which
fucking hell. That to me is palpitations, like, because you're going, I better
Yes.
I better have tied that motherfucker. I better have tied that well. That's some
Because the ladder
cartoon shit.
The ladder is tied to nothing except the top of the first ladder. What you have to do is climb up to the top of it, drill a hole for that ladder, put in your wood plug, bang in your dog, and lash that second ladder to the chimney. Now, that is some fucking Buster Keaton madness.
That oh my fucking Jesus. I've the sweats.
Two ladders up. Two ladders up, Tom. I'm getting fucking heart palpitations, okay? So this would be a good time of ending, Tom, to tell you that I hate ladders. Don't mind heights, hate ladders. I've said this before on other podcast with you before. Go up any ladder, but like the idea that the ladder would kick out from underneath me, fuck no. So the idea of climbing a ladder that's attached to fucking nothing, and I'm just laying back into the breeze, and then at the top of that ladder, I have to hold on to it as best I can while I chisel a hole in brick, put in a piece of wood, and then bang in a dog. No. That'd be scary enough, Tom, on the first couple of ladders. But remember that the chimneys Fred Dibnah were working on would require 25 to 30 ladders to get to the top of it. Steeplejack at the top, working with an assistant at the bottom. The guy at the top would let down a 300-foot rope. The guy at the bottom would tie another ladder to it. And the guy at the top would pull that ladder clattering every inch of the way, all the way up to the top of the chimney. And then tie it to the top of the top ladder and climb it again, hanging back out. And this is even before we talk about chimneys that had overhangs on them, Tom, okay? We're not talking about like
not all chimneys went straight up. A lot of them had what's known as a cantilever fucking finish on the top, where it just folds back out on itself like a mushroom.
Splays out.
Yeah.
Your mind went with mushroom, Tom, not where mine went. Okay, that's telling.
Jeff Bezos' fucking rocket, was it? Rocket cock, yeah.
So these steeplejacks would literally have to hang back against themselves, like Tom Cruise at the start of Mission Impossible 2, hammering ladders onto the chimney. And not only that, Tom, you didn't just ladder one side of the chimney. You had to ladder both sides of the chimney, which we'll talk about now in a second. Basically, you had to do this shit twice. It wasn't enough to dodge death and get it done one time. You had to do this 2 times.
Man, you're dodging death on every ladder. At least 25 to 30 ladders. Dodging death maybe 5 times on each one. And then you got to go around the other side of the chimney and do it again. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I should stress before I go any further that this wasn't a hard day's work, Tom. This was a hard month's work. It would take a long, long time to ladder up the side of a chimney. We're talking about long, slow, painstaking work. To get a ladder up one side, to get a ladder up the other side, that could take you a fortnight. And then you would have to erect a scaffold around it so that you could work, and I really feel fucking dumb saying this, Tom, so that you could work in safety.
Yeah.
So to get the scaffold up, safety, fucking air quotes on that one, all right? To get this scaffold up, the steeplejack would employ a device known as a bosun's chair, which today involves a complex system of pulleys and carabiner clips, but in Fred Dibnah's day consisted of little more than a plank on a rope, Tom. Yeah. The steeplejack would sit on it, get to the top, put in some sort of pulley device at the height of where he was working, and then basically have a rope with a fucking plank on it. Not unlike a swing you would see a child
with
playing
2
holes
holes drilled in it. It passes through the top and goes across the underside. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And then you sit your ass on that and you can pull yourself up and let yourself down. Tom, no. This is a no for me. It's a no from me, dog.
Yeah. Sorry, Randy. It's oh my fucking Jesus Christ! When you can, and you're swaying in the wind, the chimney's swaying in the fucking wind. Your fag is fucking blowing ashes into your eye.
It's very possible it's pissing out of the heavens, Tom, because this is Northern England we're talking about.
Yeah. Sweet.
So you're not doing it on a bright summer day. But from your bosun's chair, what a steeplejack could do was begin to erect the scaffolding. Okay, so what he'd do that is by having another couple of pegs and another couple of dogs, and he would bang in 2, say, about 2 foot apart from each other, okay? Then he'd call down to his labourer, lower down a rope, pull up a plank, and put that plank on these 2 dogs, okay? So basically, you've got this table of a 12 to 15 foot plank up in the sky. Now that you went round, you would lash that to that. You'd throw a bit of rope around it, Tom. You don't want
of course. Jesus Christ, you're not a lunatic. You know? Yeah.
Go over to the other side, or you've put up your other 25 ladders, Do the same over there, and now you've got, what you can imagine, Tom. Got the makings of, what you've made here is two sides of a hexagon of timber.
Yes.
So to
Yeah.
And then it's a simple as they go, Tom. From your Bolton's chair swinging around the place like Spider-Man, you can put another plank and another one. So eventually you'll have this hexagon going around the chimney, or indeed an octagon if it was a bigger chimney. You would need to do this. And now, at the very least, Tom, you've got something that you can stand on. And now, and only now, you can do the repairs to the chimney that you've been contracted to do.
Yeah. Imagine you got up there and it was like, oh, lads, this is fucked. We need to drop it. You know, which would have happened most likely on us.
Which would have happened. I mean, like, fuck me, Tom. It's
for anyone too. Before like this goes out of my head, it just popped into. It just literally. Do you know what a piece of information that you definitely would never consider that you ever lodged? Once upon a time, I used to sail. I used to race at the weekends, and a bosun. I can explain what a bosun is. Fast talk for a boatswain, i.e. a ship manager. So a bosun's chair, i.e. taken from the idea where the bosun can actually hoist himself up to manage the ship from high up the mast, not quite in the crow's nest. I don't know where that came from, Jerry. I don't know where that came from.
Like, I'm impressed, Tom. That's like, goddamn. I didn't know you sailed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's episode 5 sorted. But Tom, can you fucking picture this goddamn treehouse in the sky?
That's literally what it is. A treehouse in the sky.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, like, if anybody's listening to that saying to themselves, "That sounds a little bit dangerous," yes, it absolutely is. And if you wanted to take on with doing this work, you know, you either have a love of heights or a death wish, one or the other. Fred had obviously a love of. He didn't. I don't know from my research on him, Tom. I don't know that he loved the heights, but he absolutely was not fucking bothered by them in the slightest.
No, he was Native American level of like ice in his veins, fire in his belly kind of stuff. Like he just, and I think more than anything, Jer, he loved the engineering challenge to doing it. Because if you're watching him, he's not bigging it up, but he's definitely telling you all the facts that. You know, you can give it a go yourself in morning ago. It's not overly technical, but you know, when you do have a job to do, you can just have to do the job and you've got to do it right. And he talk you through the thing like a fantastic teacher, and only somebody who loves what they're doing. But I think more so he loved the chimneys than the actual gig. So say you're a barber. You're not really that big into cutting hair, but you really like people. You know, that kind of way, I think. Right. You just want to meet people indoors and chat with them for an hour at a time or half an hour at a time. But as far as cutting hair goes, whatever. Yeah.
If you're a chef, you really love food and preparing food, but you're not really into getting fucking yelled at for 8 hours a day. Well, here we are. Right?
There you go. You take the good with the bad, like, you know what I mean? And I think he felt it his duty to kind of preserve these chimneys. I mean, because of course they're relics of a bloody good time, you know, the Industrial Revolution and whatnot, Jerry. You know, it was bloody the backbone of the UK. That's what it was. I'm fucking well, Fred, any opportunity, by the way, if anybody's going, why is he continuous? I will be doing this throughout the show.
This is true. Yeah, you're on this train or you're not. I mean, the same with if you want to, we'll throw up some links to give you some idea of what we're talking about if we're not explaining it correctly. But basically, it's chilling. It's absolutely bone chilling to see these men. The one thing that always freaks me out, Tom, is watching him get past the scaffold when he's climbing on the ladder. Because he literally is climbing up a ladder, then meets a 12-inch plank that he has to contort himself around and then clamber up it, like the way my child climbs up onto the kitchen counter. Literally, elbows up on it first, swing one leg up, and then wiggle yourself up. And I get chills watching my son do that on the kitchen counter. But this man is 300 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
And nonplussed about it. At all. In fact, it's here where we get one of Fred Dibnah's most classic catchphrases, and he was very well known for the stories he told, but he seemed to come back round to one particular one-liner over and over again when asked if he feared death when working on such a perilous job at such a tremendous height. He was very pragmatic about it. He would just say, well, you know what? You take one wrong step, and what do you get?
Half out with the old Undertaker, of course, you know. I I will be doing that throughout the show. I'm getting a tattoo of that. Half day out with the Undertaker, you know.
Half a day out with I'm not going to do the voice. That's not my gig, and I'm no good at it. But yeah, if you are watching any Fred Dibnah interviews, no matter where you're going to look at it, he chipped in the half a day out with the Undertaker line. It's like get your bus fare home with Bullseye. Once Jim Bowman got that catchphrase in, he said it every single time.
Oh yeah.
So listen out for half day out with the Undertaker.
Okay,
right.
Taking the edge off death too, in all fairness, which tells you
taking the edge off that. I mean, Tom, what was he gonna say? Yes, I'm terrified.
Yeah, because he sure as shit wasn't. That's the thing,
you know.
But he didn't want to big up. He's humble. Is humble, of course, in my opinion. His humble upbringing wouldn't have allowed him to be that cocky. Nowadays, like on Instagram, he'd be like, "Sup, motherfuckers! Just did a 300, just did a 300-foot climb. I'm just here, I'm doing the grind every day." You want a pat in the back for doing your fucking job. Whereas Fred was like, well, it's a job, has to be done. Said I do it. Has to be done, Well,
let's see what jobs have to be done. Okay, so now that we know what steeplejacking is by and large, and that's again like a very Cliff Notes version of it, we can explain why Fred Dibnah wanted to go into this line of work. Well, no, we fucking can't, Tom.
No,
I really can't.
No.
This work is dangerous, dirty, and it does appear to be reasonably well paid. But it's hard to think that a man with Fred's knowledge and love of machinery couldn't have done just as well for himself without ever going near a ladder except to Christmas to put lights on the tree. Whatever bug it was that drove Fred Dibnah to pursue a career in steeplejacking wasn't letting go anytime soon. So as quickly as he could return home from his stint in national service, Fred bought himself a 1927 350cc AGS motorcycle and used it to drive himself from job to job, working as hard as he could in the now slowing industrial landscape of his native Bolton. Now, Tom,
I mean,
we're talking a young man, 22, 23, 24, of Fred Dibnah's appearance with a motorcycle with some ladders on the side of it, buzzing around Bolton, pointing gables. This is some Wallace and Gromit shit.
Oh, you know it. Like every time he goes over a bump or anything, like everything goes up in the air, but it all lands back down perfectly. And I can tell you one thing is for sure, Jer. Hey, that man was not wearing a helmet. I can fucking promise you he was not wearing a helmet.
No, he wasn't. I can tell you that now. I've seen him buzzing around in later documentaries when he's in his late 50s driving around it, and he's not wearing a helmet then either. So why the fuck would he wear one back then?
No. I would have loved, God, they'd be an old buzz, wouldn't there? Seeing, morning, just seeing Fred is off.
It is an actual fucking Beano cartoon come to life, Tom.
I remember seeing a guy in Dublin. He was a window washer and he was cycling. And I was like, look at that guy. Look at how hard. And he was cycling with a fucking one ladder, aluminium ladder. Not the timber fucking braced ladders that he had. And I was going, good on you, kid. But it was a disaster. The guy should have just walked with it. He was going so slow and he kept on fucking, catching his handlebars and everything. But I'm thinking, Fred, 350cc, not the biggest bike in the world. And he has God knows how many ladders hanging off the thing. And these would have been probably birch, fucking oak ladders with all those little steel binders on them all the way along. Those weren't light fucking ladders. And whatever other gear he had hanging off bike.
And I'm no motorcycle aficionado, so I'm sorry if I'm going to make the hair on every motorcycle fan out there's the hair on their neck stand up. I've seen the bike that he's talking about. To my eyes, it looks like the bikes from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the motorbikes, the chase motorbikes,
minus the sidecar,
minus the Iron Cross and all that kind of thing. But it's you get what I'm saying. It's a fucking old motorcycle. Here's Fred going around, as you say. Every bump he hits, the fucking flat cap just goes up off his head.
Oh,
all around Bolton. And around Bolton, the glory days of steam-powered industry were, even back then, Tom, fading away. But the time was ripe for skilled steeplejacks to make a name for themselves by either repairing the aging chimneys that dotted the cityscape, or, when repair was impossible or just unnecessary, knocking them down. But we're not going to knock anything down just yet, Tom. We're going to get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
I mean, this was where Fred was indeed a man at a time. I mean, like his joy and passion was in the maintenance and repair of these chimneys, and indeed, I dare say, Tom, if he had gotten the chance, the building of another few. but it just wasn't. It just wasn't what was needed at the time. This was a time where industry in England was slowing down. So Fred was. I hate to use this phrase about the man. He was kind of shit out of luck here.
Yeah, the relic that he was becoming, and he only getting into his prime. Just
only starting, and all of a sudden they're going, sorry kid, we, it's shovels are done with, we're bringing in excavators, fucking the horse is done with, we're bringing in cars. And I mean, we're, one door opens, another one fucking closes and everything else when it is these things. And normally the guy, my grandfather saw this coming. My grandfather saw the everybody thought he was mad for becoming a mechanic and opening a garage. What the fuck, where are you going? Your horses? And he was like, fucking horses. Horses ain't it.
Horses ain't it. Horses ain't it, kid. And there's guys, a guy wanted to open a stables alongside him. He was like, you lease me this? Man, I'll tell you now, I would lease it to you, but don't you fucking do it. Horses. Fucking horses. Now,
well, Fred, like as I said, Fred's coming in on the downturn of the industry, or indeed the end of an industry. I mean, it's just striking me right now that it's very like the start of Wolf of Wall Street, where he comes in and then there's the massive financial crash, and it's and he's like, oh shit, look, we're gone, we're obsolete now. But Fred, as Jordan Belfort did, turned himself into the Wolf of Steeplejack.
Jerry,
it's basically there's a parallel, Tom, there. Yeah,
Jerry, I want you to do me something. Do me a favor, all right?
Yeah, go on.
Sell me this fucking pen.
There's parallels in the stories right there. If you just take out cocaine and replace it with woodbines, we're fucking 90% of the way there.
Drop the old Lamborghini Countach, and switch it to 1927 350 cc fucking AJS
Land Rover. Yeah, my Land Rover was maroon, not white. So over the next couple of years, save for another stint in national service, serving mushy peas to lads stationed in Germany or wherever the fuck he was, Fred worked hard and invested in himself and his business, buying more and more ladders that would allow him to take on more and more work. This is simple economics if you want to be a steeplejack, Tom.
You're damn right. More ladders, bigger jobs. Bigger jobs mean more exclusive gigs and higher pay. Based on his... Like, if you got the stones to go up 20 ladders, fucking save up and get yourself. But I can guarantee you most blokes are going, I'm topping out at fucking 5.
I'm a 10 ladder man.
I'm a 10 ladder man. That Dibnah. Can you imagine what other steeplejacks were thinking about Dibnah? Bullet going.
They're like, this is this fucking crazy kid that climbed a whole thing, climbed a bridge on a fucking dare for 10 shillings.
Yeah.
And now he's going around the place buying ladders. We're fucked, lads. We're out of here. Yeah, it's simple as it. And Fred, to his credit, he knew what he wanted to do, and that was go higher and higher. And you can only go higher if you have more ladders. And back in the day, there was nowhere to rent them; you had to buy them. And you can't show up, Tom. Hey, simple physics. You can't do a 10 ladder job if you've only got 9 ladders.
Damn right. And you got to be good ladders too, because these, like I said, these. For a little side note here: anybody who ever inherits himself a good ladder. Because you won't buy one of these unless you're a professional outfit. You won't buy one. A proper timber ladder. You'll see on each little rung, there's a little metal rod goes across the top. Treat your ladder right. Every 6 months, do the Jerry McBride on it. Give it a service. Just get out your little 8-spanner. Give them all a crank. The same amount. And that's basically, you're keeping the bind nice. You can do the same with aluminium ladders to a degree. You can you can actually bring them to somebody, and where they come through the sides and they're actually peeled back. The rungs are actually made. You can get somebody to redo that for you if you've given good money for your ladder. It's well worth investing. So they stop that. When they start hearing that creaky shit, it's either put it in the fucking bin or you ain't going up. You ain't going up no steeplejack.
That's not ladder 27.
No. It ain't.
No. Use that creaky one at the start.
Yeah. That one's actually been cut up to get into the fucking hen house. That ain't coming to the job anymore.
So, through one contract or another, Fred made the acquaintance of the vicar of Bolton, a man whose name was Richard Greville Norburn. You rest assured I didn't fucking know that off the top of my head, Tom. I googled that shit. Now, I could find nothing in our research that would suggest that Fred was overly religious, save a couple of comments here and there. There's nothing really to say what the man's standing was. He did have one thing in common with this particular vicar, Tom. Machinery. The Reverend was an antiques automobile fan and made friends with Fred over a crack about what else? Fred's previously mentioned antique motorcycle.
That's how you get the leg in the door. Cute out. Do you think Fred showed up there not knowing that? I guarantee you he knew that. I guarantee you Fred knew that.
Do you know what I mean, Tom? Like every Nixer any man has ever got, any man or woman in this world has ever got. It's all about just a chance meeting with the right person, striking up a rapport, so that when they need a job done or when they need something done, they'll think of you. You can't be a prick in these kind of things. Pricks don't get Nixers.
No,
they're not called pricksers. You know, Fred Dibnah could have had as many fucking ladders as he wanted. That vicar was not going to get him for a job if he'd have fucking been like an arsehole. I don't even know what an arsehole Fred would even sound like.
No, there's no such thing. There's just no such. It doesn't equate. It's actually a contradiction, an oxymoron, an oxymoron. That's what it is. It's actually a contradiction in terms. A dickhead, Fred, doesn't exist, I'm afraid. Not on the same plane, interdimensionally perhaps, but in no way in this, on this mortal coil, there's nowhere there's a dickhead and Fred Dibnah going to meet, I'm afraid. But he knew, I guarantee at the same time, maybe you could say it's fate because, but he wasn't, I looked into it too, he didn't seem to be overly devout, but I mean, at the same time, sometimes vicars, at the same, sure shit wouldn't have the same stranglehold on the UK that Catholicism would have had on Ireland around that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
one way or another, he was the right person to meet.
Can you imagine him? Imagine him standing over talking about motorbike. I got that kickstart from a Liverpudlian lad, actually. Yeah, I did. Lovely vicar, because he would have been dropping in stuff how he's done. There's no way he turned up and went, "Oh, never done one of these before." You'd be guaranteed he would have dropped in. So you like me motorbike? Oh, I see you have a little Morgan out the back there. Oh, lovely. I worked in one of those before. Do you know? I've got the wishbone of a 1961 Morgan over at home. I've gone through it out. Would you like it, Vic? Yeah, I guarantee you, he was just sweetening the deal ever since. And all the vicars got all that vicar money. So he's like...
The vicars got that vicar money, and the vicars also got a high-ass church that needs repair. And Tom, I mean, except for the names and a few of the changes, that's probably what actually happened, because while they were kicking back talking about motorbikes and cars, the Reverend offered Fred the job of repairing the weather vane of Bolton Parish Church, which Fred accomplished with no fuss whatsoever, because, hey, that was just Fred. So this job, and indeed the subsequent write-up in the local newspaper...
I love that.
Little man fixes weather vane. Charming lad with nice motorbike helps vicar. This was the job... This was the job that put Fred Dibnah, steeplejack, on the radar of the owners of every damn tall structure in Bolton. He quickly became the go-to man for all work taking place at 50 feet or above, climbing with every ladder that he purchased. This is all the more incredible when you consider that Fred's steeplejacking skills were all entirely self-taught. We mentioned this before. He held no qualifications in engineering or architecture and had more formal training as an undertaker's assistant than he did as a steeplejack. Tom, what if there was some fucking trick to the 27th ladder that you really needed to go to school to learn?
This is where it's such a fucking crime that the army didn't spot his potential. Like, I mean, he could have been a 5-star general. The engineering brain to see that and go, well, what are you going to do at level up the top, Fred? I mean, I've overcome. I built chimney for mother, so mother. Built it for, so I don't see a problem. I mean, there'll be a problem, no doubt, but I'll make it happen. I'll make it happen. Like that. Like you never believe that guy. The bloke that goes, "Well, I've never done it. I've never done it before, but trust me, kid, I'll fucking make it happen." Fred did, the mad bastard. Like the fact that he didn't go, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna have to sit down for. I'm gonna have to, apprenticeship. Get myself an apprenticeship and steel." He just went, "I'm gonna sort it out when I get up there." There's only one logical way you could do this safely. Like as a carpenter, you're gonna hit your thumb, Jerry. You're gonna hit your fucking thumb 1,000 times before you're a master craftsman. 10,000 times before you're a master craftsman. This guy seems to be a master craftsman. Like, he can only have been a master craftsman day one, because to hit your thumb in that relevance means death. Death.
Yes.
There's nothing else. He didn't lash himself every time he drove in one of those dogs. He didn't lash himself to it. He was literally just pulling up the next ladder with his toe and then into hand and then on up. Like, he didn't fuck up ever. Like, he didn't fuck up ever, Jer, because fuck up in this world means you're dead.
Spoiler alert that he got to the end of his career and finished on his own terms and did not make headlines for falling off a chimney. It just goes to show that, like, you know what? Some people, when they see a guitar, they're like, yeah, I can play that. Yeah. See drums, are like, yeah, I can play them. Fred Dibnah looked at a chimney and said, yeah, go on, I can get to the fucking top of that.
Basically, yeah. He literally did that. Yeah, he just looked at it and went, yeah, I'll be Eric Clapton for the evening, and grabbed a guitar for the first time and basically just fucking rocked out to Layla. God, like it just came out of his fucking fingers.
As I'm talking to you, Tom, as you mentioned that that he was wasted in the army. You know, I'm not going to do the accent because I can't, but you can see him rocking into a workshop going like, what's that over there? Enigma machine? Yeah.
Oh, of course, it solves problems. I know.
But you can also use it to create problems for other people if you were to pass me a slotted screwdriver there and we'll get it going.
I only have the notion, you know, the was it first encounters of the third kind or whatever, you know, where Richard Dreyfuss is making everything. Yeah. Because this image of this mountain is in his head. Yeah. And he's making it out of, you know, the brambles outside the house, and he's throwing in the shrubs, and he's fucking building this yoke out of the continuously. Imagine Fred as you're lining up with your tray, and Fred is like, oh fucking hell. And all of a sudden everybody's getting like chimney stack fucking spuds. And chimney stack spuds again, I see Fred. And he's just in the corner, just trying to use his fork to scrape little bricks into the side of it. Just desperate to fucking get up on a roof somewhere, or get up a chimney.
Pointing it with the sauce of beans. So after he scored his job working for the vicar, he used the proceeds to extend his ladder collection to 30.
Big time.
Once he had this, that meant Fred Dibnah could tackle pretty much any chimney in town. That was it. There was no 31 ladder jobs going in Bolton. If you had 30 ladders, you were like maxed out. Your video game character was at maximum level. That was as high as you needed to go. You could get anything done. The next 10 years, his reputation as Bolton's #1 steeplejack grew and grew. I gotta tell you, Tom, it wasn't hurt by his easygoing manner and no bullshit approach to his work. This is what we mentioned as well. Pricks don't get nixers. Yeah. Fred was just sound. No matter who he was talking to, he just had the same easygoing manner. Anybody rocked up to him whatsoever, young, old, rich, poor, black, white, if they asked the question, what happens if you fall, Fred? What would he tell them, Tom?
Oh, well, I have to out with the Undertaker, of course, you know. I've been practicing. I won't lie.
If anybody that would hear that just couldn't help but love Fred Dibnah, be like, all right, you know what, this guy, hard worker, sound guy. And next time I have a steam powered factory chimney that needs knocking down, I know who I'm going to call.
Yeah, because it's the same. It's the same in every industry. Now, there's times, okay, you can get by to a certain degree based on whatever you are, especially in the entertainment industry. You can get maybe by because you're trendy at that time or whatever. But there'll come a time your cuntiness will catch up with you.
Yes.
But if you're sound, you'll always have work. I.e., you turn up on time, classic Fred. Job's not a problem, classic Fred. Sound as a fucking pound all the way from beginning to end. You're going to hire him all day long, no matter what the gig is. If it's high, fucking call Fred.
It's a Jedi mind trick. It really is. And there's no trick to it. I mean, like, Fred wasn't putting on airs and graces as best as anybody can. And I've done my research. There's no bad words about Fred Dibnah.
Not a bad word.
And, like, you know, say that about any of the last 10 popes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's not a bad word to be said about Fred Dibnah. And he could easily have just done this work for the rest of his days. He's approaching 40. He'd established a reputation that would have seen him in work for the rest of his days. Perfectly happy, Tom. That's where the Fred Dibnah story ends. Fred Dibnah, steeplejack, works away. Nice guy, well known to the people of Bolton. And you and I am not doing a podcast about him 30 years later. Shit, 40 years later.
Mm.
Until in 1978, his repair work to Bolton Town Hall piqued the interest of the local media. They'd known him for around the town, in particular BBC Northwest. And they conducted an interview with Fred as he worked on the scaffolding surrounding the building. They sent the interviewer up there and had the interviewer up at the top of it, with the film crew shaking like shitting dogs on a 16-inch board 300 feet up in the sky. So they knew they were going to get good footage, Tom, by all means, yes. But what they didn't know was what a likeable, learned, and garrulous character Fred Dibnah actually was. With his laid-back, lanky delivery charming everyone, along with his anecdotes about his job, such as what happens if you fall, Fred?
After out with the undertaker, like, yeah.
So this local interview was such a hit with everyone that everyone in the BBC who saw it immediately wanted more of the soot-covered, fag-wheezing Bolton man. And bosses quickly greenlit a documentary called Fred Dibnah Steeplejack that would bring this well-known, well-liked local man to the masses. And that, Tom, is a story for part 2 of the Tom and Gerry Show introduces Fred Dibnah.
Brilliant.
Can't give it all away in one episode, Tom.
Not at all. Not at all. We will be back, of course, next week with episode 2. Jesus Christ, I am into that man something deep. And I've no doubt, because as Gerry said, he would put up the links and whatnot to reference the points that we were talking about, where I'm telling you now, take some time out of the day, sit in silence and just watch Fred in action. Oh my sweet suffering Jesus Christ.
All I will say is this, Tom. We have gotten to this point in Fred's life, and not only have we not discussed what happens when he gets on TV and what happens after that, we haven't knocked the chimney down yet, Tom.
I know. Listen,
Fred, part 2 is where some dust gets riz.
This is Fred's glow up, as they would say. This is his glow up right now. After out with the undertaker, like it.
I gotta tell you, Tom, you're still not saying it as much as he would say it in the course of any given half an hour.
That's his. I like my old man has a thing like the obituaries come on the 10 o'clock in the local radio station. They'll come on every morning with this horrendous tune, and his favorite line is, "Oh, here, turn that up there, see if I'm on it." You're like,
yeah. My old man's go-to joke is if there's anybody been arrested or anybody that's in the local papers or something, he'll always go, probably had too much tax and insurance on his car. But we have got a wonderful second episode with more of the absolutely fascinating life of Fred Dibnah coming for you. And if you want to see any of the images, stills, shots, or videos that we have been talking about here today, please follow us on our social medias. You can get us on @TomandGerryShow or some equivalent thereof on Twitter and Instagram. Stick in Tom and Gerry Show. You'll find us. You'll find me @Jerry McBride on Twitter. I had Tom @Tom_O'Mahony on Twitter. And something akin to that will get us on Instagram as well. We also want to make mention, while we're doling out links, we want to make mention of our good friend and artist, Rob Steers, who we commissioned to produce our wonderful new artwork that we have, which I got to tell you, Tom, is warming the cockles of my heart.
It's
every time I see it.
For anybody, I'll tell you this, for anybody who's going, the fuck are they on about? What new artwork? You may have to actually unsubscribe and resubscribe on whatever that happens sometimes with artwork changes. You may have to unsubscribe,
but
you'll see it
on the socials.
It'll be up on our socials. And also go and follow Rob Steers, because he will have most likely at this stage drawn a city bot, which are the new things he's drawn at the minute, which are the cities basically look like one of Optimus Prime, but essentially it's made out of famous icons and
absolutely fantastic work, and Rob does great work with commissions. He does weddings, he does cards for all occasions. Absolutely fantastic. You'll find him on Twitter or Instagram, Rob Steers, STEARS. That'll get you, Rob. What else can we ask people to do, Tom? We can ask them to like, share, and subscribe, can't they?
There you go. Write us a nice review if you can. It helps it go up in the old algorithms for people. We will, of course, with best comment. Now, sometimes we don't get to see the comments, and maybe send us a screen grab and tag us in it on Instagram or Facebook. or Instagram or Twitter, I should say. So if you can, if you can't, just write it on or take a screen grab of where you're listening to, write something nice, and you'll go into the pot, the hat, even the flat cap for at the end of the season, where we will pick best comment and you win yourself a prize. You know, some merch will be coming your way with the new Tom and Gerry logo on it. Other than that, Jared,
absolutely.
Share it among your
friends. And don't forget, just because we're back here dropping these new episodes every week, we're not abandoning the bonus episodes. You can join us on Thursday as well for another bonus My Worst Gig Ever episode with a guest that I have forgotten, but I'm sure it's amazing. Follow us on the socials and we'll throw the name of it up. It's all
you know the crack. You know the crack. Right.
I don't remember who it was, Tom, but I know it was a good one.
Till next week.